Hi, I'm Raine, and I recently visited Japan in preparation to me moving there early next year, if things go well. And the place I visited, slash, the place where I'll be living in the near future, is a city, but it's not a very touristy city. So it isn't like a big neon city like Tokyo, nor is it like my neighbor Totoro. It's somewhere in the middle, I would say. Without further ado, here's what I expected versus the reality. Expectation: public transpo would be very difficult. Reality: public transpo was somewhat difficult, but not in the way that I expected. When you think of Japan, you're probably also thinking about trains. Yes, there is indeed a lot. Our apartment in Japan is actually pretty close to a train track, but the station itself is pretty far. I thought it would be easy to walk from the train station to our apartment with my suitcases and vice versa, but no. I don't think I would survive the bridge, actually. Plus, in our area, there's not a lot of buses, or at least I haven't seen one around our apartment. Also, getting in the wrong train in Japan is just a rite of passage. Everybody goes through it, even Japanese people. Especially if it's a brand new station you've never been in before. You're just bound to get lost. But the good thing is, even if you make mistakes, as long as you don't go out at the wrong station, you only pay for where you started and where you ended up. Expectation: cycling would be complicated. Reality: I never felt safer as a cyclist. I am no stranger to using a bike as a form of transportation. Here in Cebu, I used to bike from my apartment to the office and vice versa. At the time, and even to this day, bike lanes are not very well implemented here in Cebu. It did not feel 100% safe, but it was doable. I also know that Japan is a bike country. Everyone uses bikes, from school kids to grandparents. But I also know that Japan is pretty strict with rules. I knew that I would be cycling a lot while I was there. My husband bought me an electric bike. It was so good. So I made sure to learn all the rules before I left the Philippines. I felt prepared, but I was also nervous because here in the Philippines, if you drive, no matter if you're driving a car, a motorcycle, a bicycle, you kind of have to be aggressive about it. Like, you have to assert dominance in order to survive, or at least that's my impression of it. If you don't assert dominance, everyone will overtake you. If there's no stoplight, and there are places here in Cebu that don't have enough stoplights and they really need stoplights, especially if you're on a bike, you have to learn how to survive. But then, when I was in Japan, it was so good. There were clear signs and stoplights everywhere. There were proper bike lanes and sidewalks. Side note, you are supposed to bike in the sidewalks, at least in the area where I'm gonna live. Plus, and this was the most surprising thing, people respected cyclists. This was mind blowing. In fact, cars would give way to bicycles. This was mind blowing to me. I felt so free and limitless on my bicycle. I miss it so much. Expectation: people will stare at me, the foreigner. Reality: not really. Except, as I mentioned before, the part in Japan where I was in is not a very touristy area, so I full on expected that I would be stared at. Not in a bad way, just in a neutral way. There was actually not a lot of staring, even though I don't look Japanese. I also didn't really get treated differently. They still talked to me in Japanese. They didn't even try to speak English, which I honestly appreciated as someone who's learning Japanese. Now, I'd like to reiterate that all that I'm talking about in this video are from my own personal experience, from the very small part of the Japan that I've been to so far. There were still people who stared, mostly kids and high schoolers, specifically high schoolers at McDonald's at 9 p.m. after my Japanese class. I felt their judgment as I was asking my friend how to pronounce Otsukaresama deshita. What can I say? Teenagers scare the living shit out of me. Expectation: you have to dress conservatively. Reality: wear what's comfortable. You've probably seen those TikToks slash YouTube shorts talking about how conservative you have to dress while in Japan. As a sweaty person who grew up living in the Philippines, most of my clothes are revealing. Short skirts and crop tops are my staple. Needless to say, I only had autumn appropriate clothes good for 1 week maximum. So I had to buy a lot of new clothes while thrift shopping in Japan. That being said, I was in Japan from late September to early October, so it was actually warmer than I expected. I wear shorts and short skirts, and nobody batted an eye. In fact, on my last day in Japan, it was 20 degrees Celsius, so I was pretty covered up. But all these girls around me were wearing short skirts and bare skin. And I saw at least one Japanese girl wear a crop top in autumn. My tropical ass could not relate. My advice as a foreigner who has been to Japan for 1 month so far is to just wear what's comfortable and appropriate, especially if you're gonna go to temples and shrines. But that's it. In my limited experience in my fairly safe city, nobody stares, let alone comments on what you wear.